Good afternoon on what is a cool and overcast day. It is Wednesday the 25th of August. I'm back in the Read Nook with some parcels, and the next one I'm going to open this whilst I enjoy a nice hot cup of tea is from France, and essentially that should give you a clue as to what it is. I'm looking forward to seeing this one because I did an unboxing of the first issue of this. This is the second issue. So just slice the knife through this carefully. Be careful here. Right, try not tag the book with a knife. And inside, there we go. I have that, Nook, and this is issue 2, an old school gaming bric-a-brac. Now I looked at the first issue, and it was the sort of same size as this, and it is essentially what it is. It's an old school Renaissance compendium of basically stuff. I mean, that's the easiest way to say. And I'll show you what I mean when I get the actually unwrapped, because it itself is in plastic. So it comes off, and this is funded by Kickstarter, but the publishers, the Mushmen, have kindly sent me a copy to review because they like my review of the first volume. And you open it up, and you've got a micro setting written for old D&D, original D&D, written in one day by Gabble Lux. So there we go. And essentially, from the moment you start opening up this book, you have content. So flyleaf all the way back, okay, and I'll show you. Sorry, back. You have a map and more details of the setting there, so there is no space wasted in this book. And then we get into basically the Merry Mushmen present an Adventure Gaming Bric-à-Brac. And in bric-a-brac is essentially is all sorts of things, rubbish, useful things, bits of things you might find on a bric-a-brac stall of fate. You might find some junk, but you might find a gem. So we get into it, and there's a full list of the contributors, and you have a good list there, and the contents, and essentially we have start off with some advice for the GM, and we goes into advice for the players. Lots of interesting things there, and the GM sort of like advice continues with Cheap Tricks by Chris McDowell, who's best known for the author of Into the Odd and Electric Bastionland, which are both very nice little role-playing games in themselves. And then we've got a night generator, basically meet a knight, don't know what he is, create some random details. And then essentially playing with death, at encounters with death according to class. Again, this is just really just done by class with a table of reactions and that sort of thing, without going into further exploration up there. Handling information in role-playing games, this probably applies to most, but it's accompanied by really fantastic illustrations here, and as I say, different subjects, different topics, and then carousing for spellbook nerds, I think that says. I can never quite read that font. It's not the easiest thing to read. That's by Gavin Norman, and you basically get your D30 out for a magical research table. So yeah, lots of things in here. Mandaloo's magic long sticks. The great enchanter Mandaloo travels away from faraway lands, bringing peculiar items with him. And then Mansions of the Dead, historical inspiration for fantasy tombs by James Holloway. Basically a quick article on that sort of thing. Sorcerer corpse hazards. Essentially, you find the corpse of a sorcerer. What happens when you explore it? Or essentially, you've killed the evil sorcerer. What happens next? Will you speak Erinese mirror? Adding a little bit of classical myth to your game. Always welcome, because essentially it's always one of the things that D&D has kind of inspired by Greek and Roman myths and the like. And this interesting thing, strange things happen when you sleep in dungeons. And that's an interesting thing that you never think about. All right, the adventurers bed down, they post a guard, they lock the doors, they spike the doors shut. What happens when they're asleep? Then what happens when you run out of light in the dungeon? Been known to happen. Goblin Warlock spells for your very strange game, whether that's an NPC or you allow Goblin Warlocks in your group. I searched the bookshelf. It's one of the things I always find when you're doing a dungeon. You go, there are some books. What books are they? Sure, there's got to be interesting books there, and you have to go to the referees to go away and create those books. And sometimes they are written up, and there's enough there to do something with, or they're just names, and that's fine. But a table of just more books is great. Then we go into another thing, basically, which last time when they would look at the anatomy of a dungeon map in Adventure, and essentially they do it again with a dungeon map here. With a lovely, I think it's probably a Dice and Legos map there. Obviously, that's not going to be detailed, but it's something you could detail like yourself. There's a bit more background on it. The next couple of pages. Unquietly Undead. Essentially, this is discussing, covering sort of like what happens when you encounter undead that drains levels, and how you deal with that, because you typically that kills characters. Monster modifiers, basically making your monsters different, again, to prevent players going, oh, that's that Scarlet Ochre thing that was in that particular article. It's a classic thing. And D60 pointless items. You are going to need a D60. And obviously, you're going to be rolling a D30 twice, because who's got a D60? D60. Honestly, this should have been a D66 table, really. Random rival adventuring parties. Because essentially, you are not the only adventuring party in the world. There have to be other ones out there. So you've got tables of that, and essentially this book is full of lots of different tables. You've got an alternative to the alignment chart. It's one thing I have to say, there are a couple of few elements within Dungeons and Dragons design that essentially that players and referees are, you know, designers are a bit like a dog with a bone. They won't leave it alone. So they're always tinkering around with better alignment systems and better methods of presenting alignment, and doing the same with armor class and that sort of thing. And that all goes all the way back to the earliest days of original D&D. Equipment lists and how not to deal with them. And then thief knacks, essentially describing the thief as a very, very specialised sorcerer, which is an interesting way to look at it. And another piece on dungeon design: what is tested when designing a dungeon? One question you should ask yourself: what am I testing for? Again, all of these articles really are going to be. I'm looking forward to reading these, digging into these, talking about them. You've got so much in here in praise of vanilla fantasy. And there's nothing wrong with vanilla fantasy, but sometimes you want flavour instead of the vanilla, but sometimes you always want to go back to the vanilla. So, for example, right now we are playing in a fairly long-running game of Old School Essentials, playing the B2 Keep on the Borderlands, and it's going decently well. We've all made, most of us have made second level, apart from the elf, and it is basically, there's plenty of good roleplay. We're having fun, and we accept it's pretty much standard Dungeons and Dragons kind of play, and it's been refreshing. And now we basically return to Palo Greco, returns to Goblins with My Goblins Are. The Goblins was sort of a theme that ran through the previous issue. And then we have more chaos, basically from a war game, which feels a little bit out of place in the issue, I have to be honest, but it's nicely illustrated. They've made really great artwork, choice of artwork for this. And combat objectives, so essentially rather than just slogging it out and killing each other. I like that. Hit points, and rules for handling hit points in different situations. Again, we can return to death, playing death. Rules for that. What the Arkenstone can do for you. Again, I'm presuming that's going to be on about big artifacts. The Arkenstone obviously is the heart of the dwarven halls under the mountain, in the Hobbit. Tension versus tactics, 5 tips for horror in D&D. Yeah, there's so much in here. If failure isn't interesting, skip it. Small tables have gone, so body horror. Okay. I can't even tell what that is. Could be based upon classic, upon casual, or cursory glance. But again, boring dungeons. Again, another article. What the hell just happened to No Room for Awkward Silence for stuff to happen? You know, get something going. Compare different sort of small, punchy articles. Inspiration. An encounter with Fear, the faceless god, and then on swords. What else we got in here? Strange encounter, the charnel Saturnalia, known colloquially as the bone dance or dance of the dead. The charnel Saturnalia is a phenomenon set in motion by the deaf musician who has sold their soul in exchange for supernatural virtuosity and life. Yeah, it's obviously equivalent, basically the phenomenon of the dancing peasants, of the sort of St. Vitus dance sort of thing in the Middle Ages. Yeah. Then we've got, so you want to build a dungeon adventure for a classic style role-playing game, and you want it to be good. How does that work? Where should you start? Mise en place of dungeon design. So tackling a lot of very common questions and issues that come up in Dungeons and Dragons and dungeon play and so on. And then there's that. I'm not going to read that out. World building when enough is too much. That's an interesting idea. You know, you can do a lot with very little, but at the same time, you can do a lot with a lot. You know, the whole world. There are whole worlds to dig into if you really want to. 30 Tomes of Magic again comes back to, I like books in my game. And then Take the Wheel, outside GMing and the Joy of Letting Go. Again, probably a discussion of low prep games, I should imagine, or letting things happen as they go. And then Curse Scriptures of Petty Gods comes back to the books and the scrolls, and that's sort of like one theme running through this issue. And you've got just basically a roll of a 4d4. And then what are those spiders doing? Just, you know, here's a table of random reasons for your different spiders: Black Widow, Crow Spiders, Tarantellas, and so on. And then what is the gelatinous cube doing? It's that, because they're quite right, because it says, you know, it's such an iconic monster that it has its own Funko Pop toy, yet you always encounter it in the same way, in the middle of a corridor, poised to ambush you, yet noticeable because of some undigestible remnants of its last meal. So roll a D100, and that's what you've got. Complete the encounter, essentially fill in your own answers, build your own encounter thing. That is reminiscent, I suppose, of the Conan character generation system from the TSR role-playing game, and it does the same thing with Complete the Dungeon of Complete with Map. Here's everything, and you provide the specific details. Hex crawling, fixing spells. I'm about another four of your adventurers, you know. Basically, how do you handle that transition between a player character dying and a new character joining in? And here's some sample characters. There are 30 of them, and then portfolios of basically characterographic curiosities. A really lovely little piece of map there, but obviously in some ways it kind of feels out of place there as such, because, like, you know, it's in the middle of the book. How can I use that? Referencing it. Cartographic curiosities. So this is a section of the book where you've got map upon map. And there are no details to the map, but the GM, you're providing details upon details. And then we have a bit more traditional elements, such as a menagerie of monstrosities. And the other thing is about the maps. You've got little thumbnail biographies of the authors, of the artists for those maps, the cartographers. So we have some new monsters like the Blade Warden and the Cafetiere Assassin. Very steampunk, I would have think. With that, D's for Demons. Got a whole section on demons. Once a no-no in your role-playing game, but and then we have retinue retinue of rogues, more NPCs. Such as like errant friar, and then we get into a bit of silliness where we have the platyperson as a player character class, the autonagrag, which are some kind of giant, the beggar as a class, the prophet of ruin, plague doctor, and this is almost I would say almost like unusable in its presentation, but there's good detail there. You're looking, it's not something that comes easily off the page. And then we have extraordinary excursions, obsolete sewer radio pasteurization is a point crawl dungeon. So there is a lack of adventures in here, I think. Fort Levant is another as a hex crawl. I'd like to see a few more adventures at Dark Island and so on. At the Rot King's sanction a dungeon module for levels 1 to 3. So there you have it. This is a incredibly packed little book. So a bric-a-brac, basically a medley of just content after content after content, and if you don't like something on one page, turn over the next page, there might be something you do like, or there will be after the next page, and so on. You are getting your money's worth with this, if it's anything like the first volume. So if you have any interest in the OSR style of gaming, then this is one for you. And I will be adding this to the magazine Madness weekend of reviews I will be doing very soon as I record this video, but will be up by the time you see this video go live. So in the meantime, thank you very much for watching another unboxing in the Nook. If you've enjoyed this, please do hit the like button, and if you've got any comments or feedback, I do take the time to read those and respond, and I appreciate you taking the time to post them. And lastly, if you want to see me back here in the Nook with some parcels, okay, and something I can talk about roughly for about 10 minutes or so, to the extent of my knowledge, whilst I enjoy a nice hot cup of tea, then please hit that subscribe button. Thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.